So we're going to do that all over again because we were muted. Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you to our regular listeners and participants, and welcome to our new folks. We so appreciate you for joining Progressively Yours on this podcast. Because you really count. So click on Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast on YouTube and click on the bell to make sure you get all of the announcements about our upcoming shows. And what else? A couple things I want to share with you. But before I do that, I'll let Bernard do his spiritual opening, and then I'll make the announcements. How's that?
Okay. It works for me.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. And greetings again. I am Bernard Ma'at-Kynes, and we're so happy and delighted that you're with us this evening for another show with another wonderful guest who will provide us with more insightful information to help us with respect to our health and wellness. But before we begin, as it is with our ritual and tradition, we take this moment, this 1 minute meditative moment, as I like to refer to it, and invite the spirit of the Creator, our ancestors, to be with us. So if you wish to participate, I invite you to wherever you are to just take a moment, if you're seated, to close your eyes and begin taking in 3 breaths in and out through your nose, deep and full. When I say full, I mean that you feel it down in your belly. Exhale all the way out and just begin to let your body relax so that your heart can receive what is intended for you tonight. Your true home, the everyday wisdom of Thich Nhat Hanh. These words for our thoughts. The miraculous smile. In our face, there are dozens of muscles. And when we're angry or afraid, those muscles hold a lot of tension. But if we know to breathe in and be aware of them, and breathe out and smile to them, we can help them release the tension. Our face can be completely different after 1 breath in and 1 breath out. And a smile can bring a miracle. The ancestors are present with us. Grant us permission to move forward with a smile in our hearts. Good. It is indeed for the ancestors. Ashe.
Absolutely. Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
That was good. Those always help me to kind of decompress and get ready for the show. And it is just amazing how powerful a smile can be. You know, as you're walking through the store or even sitting in traffic next to people, you know, and then folks are frustrated and carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's just a smile can just help them to decompress and feel better. And so I always try to wear a smile, not a fake one, but just a smile, you know, when I'm passing people, and folks seem to appreciate it.
You wear a beautiful smile most of the time.
Thank you, dear.
Yes, you're welcome.
That. All right. You make me blush.
Yeah, blush on.
So by way of announcements, I just have a couple things before we get to our amazing guest. we have, we're inviting people to become part of our trusted network. You can go to our website, which is meetsankofa.com, MEET Sankofa.com, and scroll down to the trusted network, because you end up getting, and the network is global. It's the US, Canada, and I believe there are other places throughout the world that are now involved with this, the network that we're connected with. So we invite you. It's a digital card, but you can also use it as your website, and it's real easy to share with people because you get a QR code, and it's wonderful. So anyway, we invite you to be part of our trusted network, and go to meetsankofa.com and look for that link. Also, we've mentioned our partnership with the Precision Health and Wellness Center in Swanee, Georgia, and just found out that our red light bed, which we have talked about many times on this show, it is on the way. It is in the truck, and it is coming from California. So it might still take a couple days, but we are very, very excited to share that with the Atlanta community and anyone else who chooses to come and join us. We're actually going to be working in the same wellness center as our guest this evening, so that's going to be exciting to see her more frequently. So also, we had Raul Serrano as our guest on 2 weeks ago. We shared his show twice. But anyway, he spoke about the wonderful Sankey products that kind of emulate the lives and bodies of people who live in these blue zones. There are like 5 of them around the world. So to my surprise, I found out that the Sankey products, which are based on postbiotics, which are like the strongest bacteria that can work in your system and help to promote cellular wellness, the company has free samples that people can try their products. They just charge you for the shipping. So, thank you, Janet, for putting that up for us. You can get a free sample of these wonderful Sankey Blue Zone products, as I call them, at mysankeyglobal.com/Sankofa/sample. And again, you're only paying for shipping, and it's a real way to try the products, if you're thinking about ordering them. And we highly encourage you to do that, because we're loving them.
Yes, they are beautiful. Yeah, I said beautiful in terms of they're powerful in terms of what they do to the body. We've been vetting them for the week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and I was sharing with you, Imani, that my testimony is the way I have to test supplements out, such as this, is I have to put my body under stress. Briefly, so Sunday I got up, I took the Barrage, which is the first one, in the morning. Took it Sunday morning, went up and swam 800 yards for about 20 minutes, then joined Imani and we did hot yoga for 75 minutes. Then I went and got stretched after that for an hour. And then I just went, there's another red light in town, but I'm doing that just to experience it, so I know how to talk about it on a personal front. And my energy was just kind of amazing for the remainder of the day. So it's a very good product, and we invite you to check out the samples.
Absolutely. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest this evening. We always appreciate people taking out the time to come on Progressively Yours with us to talk about what it is that they do, which is different from what everyone else does, but information that will help to help people in terms of their health and wellness. So, and Daniyal Ayvazian.
See?
I'm sorry, Daniyal. I'm trying. I will still work on it. I'll just let it go.
When she comes on, we'll get her to say it for us.
Yes. Yeah. But she says it's such a cool sort of way, but she's been saying it longer than we have.
That's her name.
So Daniyal is a functional nutritional specialist dedicated to empowering individuals to optimize their health through personalized nutrition and lifestyle interventions. With a master's degree in clinical nutrition, as well as a certification as a clinical nutrition specialist, CNS, Daniyal combines scientific expertise with a holistic approach to the root causes of health issues. So she's not just giving you some pre-baked menus of, what to eat, as a nutritionist. She really goes deep. She is the founder of the Functional Foodie Nutrition program. And so I'm sure she will talk about that during our interview with her. Through comprehensive assessments and tailored plans, she guides her clients towards sustainable wellness, emphasizing the interconnectedness of nutrition, gut health, hormone balance, and overall vitality. With a passion for integrative health and ongoing research, Gabrielle is committed to staying at the forefront of functional medicine to support her clients on their journey to optimal well-being. With that, we'd like to invite Daniyal to join us.
Hello.
Hello, Danielle.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Go ahead and help us out for the audience.
You were so close, Imani. So close. It's Ayvazian.
Ayvazian. So you pronounce
there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I need to write it out phonetically.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. I have to write it out, because
it helps. It helps. It's a tough name. We'll blame my husband for that one.
Oh, okay.
What is the origin of the name? It is.
It's Armenian.
Armenian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Wonderful. So.
Yeah, we're so delighted that you have joined us tonight. We've had a wonderful conversation when we had our grand opening at Precision. And Bonnie and I look forward to sharing more days with you. She'll be there more than I will.
Okay.
It's going to be a nice teamwork, and because we love the facility, we love the vision.
Yeah, it's a great place.
That that Samantha has put forth to bring this collective team together.
Definitely.
We look forward to partnering up with you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
When you guys get to bed, I want to be the first one.
All right.
Okay.
All right. But maybe the third. Maybe the third, because we have to be 1 2. She'll be 1.
I can be the third.
And just to warn you, a couple of other people have said the same thing.
I'm sure. Yeah, a lot of people.
But everyone will get a chance to try it.
Yeah, good. Awesome.
So Danielle, before we begin getting into the nuts and bolts of your specialty, introduce yourself to our audience in your own words by sharing with us some of your story. And I always like to frame that at a particular age in your life, like from birth to age 12. Just kind of associate with us, and whatever story comes to mind, just share with us who you are in that context.
Sure. Yeah. So if I think about, who I was between ages from birth to 12 and who I am now, and the career that I have chosen, a big piece of that is the way that I was born into this world, actually. So I have a congenital heart defect. It is called complete heart block. And so I require a pacemaker for my entire life. I actually just got a new one a couple of weeks ago. So this will be my 6th pacemaker. And so having this lifelong condition has been a really big impact in my life overall. And my desire to go into healthcare. I kind of always knew that I was interested in healthcare because I wanted to help people who were similar to me. So I actually initially went into cardiac devices as my first career. So I learned specifically about pacemakers and defibrillators, and that was in the conventional medicine space. So I've been there for the past 5 years at Emory Healthcare in Atlanta as a cardiac device specialist. And it's been a fantastic job. But it was missing something for me, which was, I think in the conventional medicine space, a lot of times, we see the body in categories, right? So you have like cardiology, endocrinology, whatever, gynecology, all these different things, and we sometimes forget how interconnected the body can be and how it truly is. And so I started to see that concept in functional medicine and particularly in nutrition. So I started having my own downstream health effects from having this congenital heart defect as I started to get into like probably 11 or 12 is when I started having other issues because of this congenital issue. And my mom actually took me to Progressive Medical Center. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's in Dunwoody.
I've been
Yep.
going there since 2015.
Okay. Yep. Well, me too. I think probably a little sooner than that for me. Um, but that's where I got introduced to the concept of functional medicine and how nutrition can really play a role in, not only maintaining health, but also preventing it from getting worse. And particularly in my case, having a lifelong congenital heart disease, it's really important, that I take care of that and maintain what I do have now. And so I became really interested in nutrition because of going there and working with the dietitians there, and just recognizing this is something that wasn't talked about in the conventional medicine space, right? Like I went to my cardiologist all my life, from the time I was a baby till now, and no one ever talks about nutrition. Maybe briefly they talk about like sodium restriction. But in terms of like actual nutrients and how to sustain the body, that was never talked about. And so that's really how I got into what I do now.
Were you an only child in your family? Or do you have siblings?
I do have one sibling. He's a year younger than me. He does not have the same heart condition. So what happened was, it's actually kind of interesting. I studied this when I was in school originally to be a cardiac device specialist. So my mom has lupus. And sometimes when you have systemic lupus, when the mother gets pregnant, what happens is the antibodies of lupus actually go and attack this very specific area of the heart. It's called the AV node. And so essentially what it does is it causes scarring on a portion of the heart of the electrical conduction system so the top part of the heart functions just fine. It basically should go top, bottom, top, bottom. So the top chamber pumps fine, but the bottom chamber forgets to pump, essentially. So the pacemaker goes in there and fixes that. But my brother does not have this condition because they were aware of it in me. So they were able to prevent it for him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, were you on medication too? Was that part of what was happening?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, medication at a young age. I remember I started experiencing the sensation of palpitations pretty frequently. So I don't know if you guys have ever felt palpitations, but they feel not fun. Yeah. So
They have once or twice, but nothing.
Yeah. So basically just like, skip beats or feel like your heart is racing for like no apparent reason. And as a kid, that was scary. Yeah. So I was put on medication for that particularly, and then also put on anxiety medication, because I was dealing with the mental aspect of it as well. And so that's another thing that I learned seeing a functional medicine specialist with the anxiety medication was how detrimental that medication can be to gut health. And so there were lots and lots of downstream effects for me having taken these medications for, since I was like a little kid. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so good that, you were led to this path.
Yeah, I think so too. Blessing in disguise, definitely.
Were there family members also in medicine, or you just felt inspired because of your own health challenges and condition?
Yeah, I'm the only person really in the kind of medicine space. My dad does some stuff in medicine, but more on the business side of things. He's not really clinical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about what you do as a professional. You indicated part of a lot of the inspiration was come from your own health challenge and
Hmm.
early on. Tell us through when you were how did this become even more of a vision for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it started for me, it started developing probably in high school is kind of when I determined that I wanted to be in healthcare. But I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like for me. When I was in college, I found out about this program. It's called Arrhythmia Technologies Institute. And that's where I went for after undergrad to learn about devices.
Mm-hmm.
And when I entered the space in conventional medicine with cardiac devices, that is when I realized this isn't exactly what I want to do because we were kind of still in that conventional medicine space where what I find a lot of times is we help people, but we're not necessarily helping them help themselves. And that's what I wanted to do ultimately. I wanted to help people find their own agency in their own health challenges because that's what worked for me to get better. So I got interested. I was always kind of interested in nutrition, but I only knew about it through a conventional medicine lens. And so I wasn't particularly interested in it initially because I didn't want to just give like meal plans, like you were saying in the introduction, right? Like I didn't want to just give meal plans. I didn't want to tell people to cut back on calories and carbs and whatever. I didn't want it to be so restrictive. And that's how the world of nutrition appeared to me externally. And so when I was a patient at Progressive and I started to see the way that they did it, it was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I recognized that there was this completely different path in nutrition that I could take. Um, and yeah, that's basically how I got interested in doing it through a functional medicine lens.
Mm.
Explain, thank you, Danielle. Explain for our audience sake really what what your focus is in terms of a functional nutritionist. So
Okay.
yeah.
So as a functional,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I said we understand what you're not. So now we
Gotcha.
can
Okay.
just on
Yeah.
what the focus is and what makes it so unique and so important that whether our listeners would be interested.
Yeah. So what I would do as a functional nutrition specialist is I take a lot more of a holistic approach to nutrition. So when I work with my clients, we're not just looking at calories and carbs. We're looking at the specific nutrients for somebody. So say, for example, I have a client right now who has come to me with hypertension, so high blood pressure. And his main goal is to get his blood pressure down and then eventually come off of the medication. But he has all these other things too, like he's overweight a little bit. He's got some cholesterol issues, type 2 diabetes, all these different things. So the difference between seeing a regular nutritionist and a functional nutrition specialist is what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on like a whole body, whole person approach is what we call it. So I'm going to start with your gut health. So one of the first things that we do is we take approaches to lower inflammation in the body. And I'm going to do that with pretty much everybody that I see, but particularly based on the data that I get from my client, right? So that's going to be lab work. Sometimes we do stool testing. We can do a bunch of other different types of tests as well that gives me, concrete data to know where to start. But starting with lowering inflammation is always a good starting point. So we do that through food. So I would give somebody therapeutic doses of particular anti-inflammatory foods, such as like turmeric, ginger, garlic, all these kinds of things, and incorporate them into somebody's diet on a daily basis. And so we would be lowering inflammation. We would focus
Let me
on.
ask Danielle, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you.
You're good.
But I do want you to explain why inflammation is such a big issue.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
People just really don't understand how important it is to keep inflammation under control and to reduce inflammation. So
Right. Definitely.
Talk a little bit.
So inflammation, what we know from a functional medicine perspective is that inflammation is kind of the root of most chronic diseases. So whether you have type 2 diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you have, I don't know, PCOS, all these different conditions, right? Inflammation is really kind of at the heart of the problem. So it's one of the biggest focuses in nutrition. We're trying to reduce that inflammation and get the body at a much more homeostatic level, right? So kind of less inflamed and calm it down, calm the system down quite a bit so that we can then move from there in whatever direction that looks like for that person.
Okay, thank you. Because that's, you always hear about inflammation, but people don't really quite understand. I don't know if we really understand what it is or why, but I know, like you said, it's seen as the root of a lot of that and being too acidic.
Yeah.
So that's something that you deal with too, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So keep going. You're talking about the holistic approach and starting with gut health and looking at checking for inflammation.
Yep. So gut health, inflammation. The next thing would be like antioxidant production. So essentially, we want to increase the body's ability to produce its own antioxidants. And that's helpful because it contributes to reducing inflammation. So the main goal really is to reduce inflammation in anybody that comes to me, because that, like we were talking earlier, is kind of the root of most chronic diseases. So it's really important to get the body in a state of calm. And then from there, we can do, whatever approach we need for whatever somebody's coming to me with.
A state of calm. Like that. Can you say more about that? That's an interesting phrase. Get the body in a state of calm. What about that? What do you mean by that?
Sure. Yeah. So when the body is inflamed, inflammation is a signal to the body that there's something wrong, right? So it's the body saying, hey, like when you get a scrape or something, and we talk about, signs of infection, redness, swelling, inflammation, all of these different things, right? So inflammation is a sign that says something is wrong. We need to focus on this area of the body, and we need to get that inflammation down, because what that inflammation is doing is telling the body you're on high alert. There's something's wrong, right? So what we're doing in reducing the inflammation and bringing the body back to a state of calm is to tell it we are safe. And then from here, we can do what we need to do to get your condition under control.
I love that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And say more. We start with the gut. I've just finished reading a book, This Is Your Brain, on parasites.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And in the chapter on gut health, talks about, Kathleen, that is, talks about the gut as the center. And so if most chronic illnesses develop from if the gut is not in homeostasis or good balance. Say more about the importance of gut health. I visited with my dentist today, and she's a mercury-free dentist, and we had her on the show last year, and she talked about from dentists and the treating of patients, the importance of gut health with the gum and the teeth.
Definitely.
Let's talk about gut health and it's important, and then I'm going to share my personal testimony and my experience at Progressive on the same.
Yeah, of course. Gut health, at least in the functional medicine space, it's super popular topic right now, and rightly so, because I don't know if you've ever heard the gut being referred to as a second brain.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So essentially, it's the concept that the gut is just as important, if not, you kind of potentially is the control center more so than the brain. There's some theory out there to suggest that the gut has more control than the brain. Because if you think about it, that's where everything starts, right? So when we consume food, where does it go? It goes to the gut. So because of that, everything that happens in the body, all of the biochemical reactions that happen in the body happen uh, after what is being put into the gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your gut is what's going in there is really important. If you're putting really crappy stuff in there all the time, and then you have these negative biochemical reactions, you're going to see negative downstream effects, symptoms, all that kind of stuff in different organ systems in the body. So that's why gut health is crucial. You want to make sure that the gut is functioning properly, that you're feeding it appropriate nutrients, in order for other organ systems to then follow properly.
Yes, and to that point, one of the things that I think most many people, because they have not experienced, let's say, functional health, and they've been
Hmm.
primarily in traditional healthcare, is I never heard when I was going to my traditional medicine doctors about leaky gut and
Right.
the effect that leaky gut has on my overall health in
Hmm.
terms of how it impacts absorption. And
Hmm.
if the absorption is off in the gut, then everything is going to be off.
Hmm.
Um, Dr. Bruquette, when I started at Progressive, he was examining me during the consultation session, and he looked in my mouth, and I had these mercury fillings, and he says,
Hmm.
"So you got to get those out."
Mm-hmm.
So I went to
Yep.
the mercury-free dentist, Dr. Dressler, and one of the things he explained, he says, the mercury is being deposited into your gut, creating a leaky gut, and therefore um, all of the poison and toxins are moving into your bloodstream, and therefore it's going to create problems on all of your organs. Say more
Exactly.
about the problems of leaky gut and some ways that functional medicine address that, and why understanding what leaky gut is important.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely, I agree with you 100% everything you just said about leaky gut. So it also promotes inflammation when you have a leaky gut because essentially your gut lining, what it is all these little gap junctions, and they're supposed to be side by side, directly connected to each other. So when food enters the small intestine, everything stays within the small intestine and then gets to the large intestine. When you
Mm-hmm.
have leaky gut syndrome, what happens is those gap junctions open up slightly. So there's room for food particles to go through the gaps, right? So it should be like this, but now the gap junctions are like this.
Mm.
So when the food comes through, some particles slip through and actually go straight into the bloodstream where it's not supposed to be. So
Mm-hmm.
when the body sees that, it says, this is a foreign item. I don't know what that is. And I need to produce inflammation to tell the body that we're under attack.
Wow.
So that's essentially, why leaky gut is not good.
And what are some symptoms of leaky gut?
Yes, I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
For
yeah,
me,
good question.
for me,
You
it was discovered after doing the, some of those exams and tests that for me it was I had yeast,
yes.
a belly of yeast. But what are some
Mm-hmm.
symptoms that people can observe within their bodies about leaky gut?
Yeah, good question. A lot of people experience digestive discomfort. So, you could have anything from bloating to constipation and or diarrhea or both. You can have brain fog. That's a pretty typical one that people experience with leaky gut syndrome, especially if it's pretty advanced. And yeast is another one. And a symptom of that would be you can see like a white coating on the tongue. And that would indicate that you have a significant amount of yeast all in the entire gut lining, from mouth to anus. So, yeah, that can be very indicative that you have leaky gut going on.
Are there any? Yeah, that was a good description of leaky gut. I mean, that whole thing of taking foreign objects into the bloodstream and the bloodstream protecting, the body.
Mhm.
That's so important. Are there any foods or food categories in particular that you encourage people to just don't eat that ever? Are they? I mean, and not ever, but I mean, there are certain things that we know are just kind of toxic to the body. So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
foods that would promote leaky gut syndrome would be, your processed foods, so like things coming out of a can,
Mm,
getting fast food all the time, certain oils, right? So like peanut oil, sunflower oil, kind of some of more of these like more widely used oils, because what we've done is anytime that you make something mass produced in food, we're typically reducing the quality of that item, and
mhm,
it usually also creates inflammation. So a lot of these oils that are used out in restaurants and stuff, even if you're getting, a quote unquote healthy meal, something
mhm.
that looks very balanced, it may be cooked in a highly inflammatory oil. So that's also, something to think about.
What is, as you mentioned, oils? I'm always reading the ingredients, and there are
Mhm.
certain things that they say, just certain oils like canola oil. What is
Yeah.
canola oil? And is
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
is that one of those bombshells that people should try to stay away from as much as possible?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say canola oil is, probably one of the worst ones.
Mm.
It is
Seed
highly
oil. Yes,
processed.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So because of that, it then in turn is highly inflammatory.
Mhm.
So if you have leaky gut syndrome, you definitely want to avoid that as much as possible. And even if you don't, because you want to maintain the integrity of your gut.
Mhm.
So it's one of those. That one and peanut oil, I would say, are probably the two most widely used and worst ones currently,
Mhm.
at least.
Wow.
And what about, and I didn't mean to cut you off, what about cottonseed oil? When you think of cotton, you think about clothing, so I said,
Yeah, yeah,
cotton is
definitely.
food. So cottonseed oil, is that another one that people should sort of,
Avoid.
what?
I would say that it probably needs to be used minimally as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see it a lot in, like, you see little nuts at the checkout stand in the food
Mhm.
store. And if
Yep,
you
you see it
read
there.
in the ingredients, they always have cottonseed oil. I'm like, why
Yeah.
are they putting,
I know, right?
and you
Yeah.
want to grab something as you're going out the store because you're hungry and you haven't eaten all day. It's like, nope, not going to do it because it's cottonseed oil. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I
yeah,
think it's, okay every once in a while if you're leaving the grocery store and you're hungry, but like cooking with it,
right.
for cooking, I would stick to mostly olive oil, avocado oil.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I know some people say don't cook with oils at all because it sort of changes when you cook. You
with the
know,
heat. Yeah. That's a
heat
whole nother topic. Yeah.
for the topic, but related, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
all related to what happens when we eat these things and they go inside. I often think of, if our stomachs were, if you could see through, our skin and see
Hmm.
what's going on in there, people would probably make a very different
Oh,
choice
yeah. I think you're right. Yeah,
about what,
definitely.
about what to put in their mouths.
Yeah.
What would you offer for our audience's consideration for, in addition to avoiding these oils, uh, ways of taking care of their gut, in addition to diet, meal? What other ideas would you offer for
Sure.
consideration?
Yeah. First thing that came to mind would be fermented foods. So when it comes to gut health, we not only are we looking at inflammation, but another big aspect of it is going to be the gut microbiome. So the little, what we call gut bugs, right? There's these little microorganisms living inside of our guts. And
Mhm.
so we want to feed the good ones, and we want to make sure that we're not providing space for the bad ones to continue to grow. right? It's okay to have some of the bad types of bacteria in small amounts. And in fact, most of us have that. Like, for example, the yeast. A lot of, pretty much everybody has yeast in their guts to at least some small extent. And at a small extent, it's okay. It's fine that they're there. It's when they're overgrowing that it becomes a problem. So foods that you would want to eat to support gut health are going to be fermented foods. So like sauerkraut, yogurt, and then definitely say it again.
I like sauerkraut. I don't, but I do
Okay.
like coconut and some other things.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Coconut kefir, coconut yogurt, those are great. Veggies. So your veggies are going to have a lot of good fiber in there. Just very good for the microbiome in general. Those are the two main things. And then as far as supplements go, probiotics are useful as well, particularly if you have prebiotics alongside them. So sometimes people will take a probiotic supplement, but depending on what their gut microbiome looks like, they may actually need a prebiotic as well, which is essentially food for that probiotic.
Probiotics, yeah. We've been learning about that, and even postbiotics, which are like stronger strains. So
I love the but I love the 350 that they have at Progressive. I'm sure you're familiar.
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen it.
And I was reading on the back, and as long as I've been taking the 350, first time I read that you use about 1 to 2 ounces of water. I always use about 6 or 8.
Oh, okay.
So this morning I decided to try 2 ounces, and I don't know if I'm feeling different, but just I was doing it as it was prescribed on the back of the box. But I've been using the 350 for a while, and the point that you made about the yeast, if it overgrows, mine was so severe that it began to just eat away at my toenails. That's how we caught it. And so one of the things that I had to do to reverse that, not only was to begin to put in supplements and clear out my gut, but you weren't there when Alan was there, but you may have known him at Progressive, but I did a lot of colonics with him.
Okay, that's very cool.
Out my digestive system. And on my second visit with him, he asked me kind of seriously and kiddingly. He said, "Are they working with you with yeast?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Because you just released a ton." And
wow!
So I was,
that's so cool though.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, that you mean the releasing them out?
The release of it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I did 15 colonices for 15 weeks until the flora and until it was pretty flushed out. And,
wow, that's interesting.
And so I stuck with him for as long as he was there in terms of doing part of the gut health of flushing out by doing the pure water colonics.
And I just want to mention, because he asked, what would you recommend that people do? And I know that you work with people one-on-one, and everyone's different. There's no like cookie cutter approach, because you really have to kind of understand what's going on with each person. So we highly encourage people to make an appointment to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Please do.
Get the assessment. We'll be there. It's going to be, that wellness center, Precision Wellness Center in Suwanee, Georgia, is really, really amazing. So we look forward to working closely with you in that.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Yeah, let me see if Janet has your links, how people can get in touch with you. I did see it come up a couple times, but we definitely want it. There we go.
There you go.
That is a really long email. Wow.
I know. After I made it, I was like, oh man, it's too late now.
So it's your first name, last name at thefunctionalfoodienutrition.com.
Right.
How'd you come up with that name, the foodie part?
You know
Janet,
what? It's a good question. I don't know. I came up with it actually like years ago, and I just kept it in my head and just pulled it out. Pretty recently, I started this company. So, yeah, I don't know. It just came to me one day.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's it's catchy. You know, people say,
Yeah. Thank you.
what do you do? What do you really do? Well,
Yeah.
we're eating and make recommendations to help them to get better. So,
Right. And I
yeah,
liked it because, you know, like typically you think about a foodie as somebody who loves food, right? Which I
right,
do. So I thought it was fitting because I don't ever want to make people feel like when they are working with me that I'm going to be restrictive with them.
right.
It's all about finding foods that you like and foods that are going to work well for your body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a balance too, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes we have certain foods that we like. We tend to just eat those all the time, and it
Mhm.
seems
Yeah.
like your body does better when you give it a
Yeah, a
more
little bit of rotation.
rotation.
Mhm.
Do,
Exactly.
do you offer food sensitivity testing?
Um, Not on my own. We can do that at Precision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was pretty helpful for me to the point you might have just made.
Yes.
When I did the food sensitivity testing, I was eating. I loved spinach, and I was almost eating it every day, and it came up.
Yeah,
Oh,
on
this
your
is
list.
something you need to pull away from. I said, why? You know, you think it's healthy,
Right,
Mhm.
right, right. Yeah, it's tricky.
overdo it, man. So I had to back up. They said you don't have to quit, but we might want you to back off for about 3 months or so.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That and
Yeah.
pistachios.
Well, that's more recent. You know, pistachios
I know.
is a recent one, but you know, like
Okay.
just
Yeah,
chocolate.
people are always, you know, kind of mind blown a little bit. They're like, "What? But this is a healthy item. How can I be having a sensitivity to it?" But yeah, it happens. So you just have to cut it out, usually for at least 3 months, and then you can kind of start to reintroduce items. Yeah.
That was what came. One of the things that came up for me was avocados,
Mm,
and I
that
love
as well.
avocados. Every time I make a salad, I'm like there chopping up, putting the
Yeah.
avocado in there, and that came up as one of the things I needed to leave alone. I'm like,
Mm,
no, no, you can't
I
take out.
know. It's like, man, come on. Why does it have to be avocados?
Yeah, I backed off for a while. I don't eat them as frequently now. Maybe more like twice a week instead of every day.
Right. Yep. I had to do the same thing. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So
Yeah.
Danielle, speak about absorption and why that is key and important. And uh, I do want to offer a supplement that I use that I know you're familiar with that help with tightening up the gut lining. But why is absorption so important with the overall health and well-being?
Yeah. So if you think about it, when you consume food, if you do not fully absorb all of the nutrients that you consume and they go to waste instead, right? Then you're not getting the benefit of the nutrients that you've just consumed. So you want your body, your small intestine to be able to fully absorb those nutrients so that the rest of the biochemical reactions that happen in the body have those key nutrients for those reactions to take place. And so ultimately for your organs to function optimally.
Mhm.
That's kind of the short answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absorption is very, very important because
Yes.
otherwise
Right.
you're just passing things through your system and not getting the nutrients from them.
Right. Yeah.
yeah. One of the supplements that helped me that I will promote, not promote the company per se, but was the um, now I just forgot it just that quick.
Was it one at Progressive?
Yes,
One of the
Okay.
ones
I think.
GI Revive.
yeah,
Yeah, I
everybody.
remember. Yes. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
gonna say I got to know their products really well. That was fantastic. That worked for me as well.
yeah. I started and I was having skin issues, as a result
Mm.
of the leaky gut syndrome,
Mhm.
and I was going to dermatologists,
Mhm.
and the external medicine that she was giving me, the creams on spots that I had on my leg, it wouldn't heal. I even
Mhm.
got shot injections.
Mm.
And Dr. Johnson says, try this. Just take this, just put 1 scoop in 8 ounces of water.
Mhm.
In 4 days, I had a very severe spot on my leg, and in 4 days, it cleared up.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and
That's
my
an awesome
skin
story.
continued to clear up. And when I went back to the dermatologist, I really went back to show up the improvement. And he was just like, "Wow, what
What are you
secrets have you
doing?
been keeping
Yeah.
from us? What have you been
What are
doing?"
you doing?
But I just emphasize that because what you're saying in terms of gut health and the overall health of the well-being and nutrients that our body needs, the conversation around gut health and I'm I am converted to
Yeah,
good
me
health.
too,
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
But we got a comment from one of our viewers and a friend, Donald Thomas, when we were talking about pistachios and avocados and sensitivities to both of those. He said he pulverized pistachios and sprinkled them over avocado. And it sounds like a wonderful, wonderful treat, you know? I mean,
Yeah, I'm
again,
gonna start suggesting that to my clients.
yeah,
That's awesome.
right, exactly. So, yeah, I guess as long as we don't overdo anything,
Anything.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I mean, that's
Mhm.
probably one of the things you can do every day and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, I'd like to just invite those who are listening and those who will hear like the recording of this to consider making an appointment with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to get a test. Because we think sometimes we know,
No.
but we
Mhm.
don't. And I remember Dr. Bouquet said to me when I first came to Progressive, he says here, and I'm sure this is the same theme at Precision, is that we don't guess. We get to the root
Mhm.
cause of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, we're guessing, we'll try this, we'll try that, and we may be hitting and missing. But I would like to invite the audience, because gut health is so important, to consider setting up some time with you just to do a consultation, and if
Mhm.
to doing some form of
Intervention.
testing and intervention.
Mhm.
They'll
Definitely.
know that they have a foundation.
Yeah. And yeah, of course. I think even if you don't continue with a nutritionist long term, it's helpful to have that kind of baseline, right? To
Mhm.
kind of know what's going on in the gut. A lot of times we do like stool testing. I don't know if you did that at Progressive.
I did.
Yeah, but it's very valuable for me to know what specifically is going on in the gut, and then I can from there provide recommendations on specific foods, amounts of foods, and things like that to incorporate and also to avoid.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a fantastic modality of healing that I think is undervalued in most areas of medicine. It's huge, gut health and
Absolutely.
yeah, the absorption of nutrients for sure.
Yeah.
So we have like 5 minutes left, maybe
Mhm.
6 if we stretch it. And I just wanted to invite our listeners, if they have any questions. They've sort of been saying hi on Facebook. I haven't
Mhm.
seen. I don't know if I'm connecting with people on LinkedIn or not, or YouTube, but we appreciate them watching as well. But if anyone has a burning question that you'd like to ask Danielle, please feel free. If you type it in, I'll see it, and we can make sure that she has an opportunity to answer. And so, and while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, if you have any kind of final thoughts or something that we might not have touched on that you want to
Sure. Yeah.
talk about.
So yeah, another big piece of what I do with my clients is focus on lifestyle intervention. So not just the exercise piece, but a really big part of your overall health is stress and stress reduction. So one of the things that I help people do is find modalities that work for them to reduce stress. Because when we're focusing on, if we're looking at gut health or really any other condition, stress is typically a really big component as well. Um, so I help people to figure out what works for them to reduce stress. And what you see is digestion starts to improve. And then all the other conditions, the downstream effects of that as well start to improve as well because your body is now coming to that state of calm. when we can reduce the stress. So that's a big piece. Nervous system function and just kind of the stability of that is a really big piece of nutrition as well.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because, my background, having worked at CDC for many years, and one of the things that was always that kept surfacing was the fact that stress is the number one killer in this country, probably in the world at this point.
Probably.
So, the meditation, the things that people can do to help kind of de-stress are so important.
Yeah. Janet, we have one question. Can you put that question up from the Facebook?
What is the number one thing you see most common that people can avoid for overall health and wellness?
That's a good question. The number one thing that people can avoid. Well, as far as food goes, I would probably say processed foods and or fast food. That's the number one thing that I would avoid in terms of food, because you don't have control over how that food was made, right? So cooking at home is going to be really important to have agency in what you're putting in your body.
Agency.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ariana, for that question. I think that was a good question.
And I would add to that what you just said earlier and brought up is stress reduction. Minimizing the stress in our lives, and learning to shift the body to help it maintain a sense of calm, mindfulness, meditative moments, exercise that promote a kind of balance, like yoga, getting in the pool, swimming. Those things that can be calming and relaxing, quiet time, first thing in the morning, when before you start the day, spend time with yourself in however meditative, prayerful mode, reducing the stress throughout the day, breathing, as Thich Nhat Hanh said in the meditation tonight, breathing in, breathing out, smiling, and taking one moment at a time in the activities that we do, whether it's at work, whether it's at play, whether it's in our relationship, just finding moments within the self to offer self positive affirmations to the self.
Definitely.
Every day, and repeating those affirmations several times over.
That's right.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so that is good. Wow, what we always, when we have folks who are really good, we say we have to have you back, and so we definitely have to have you back.
I would love to be back.
We're just warming up with this discussion. Well, we know where you work.
Right. I know you can find me pretty easy.
Absolutely. So we thank you so much for coming on and sharing with our audience, and we thank our audience for tuning in and asking questions and making comments, and this has been wonderful. We wish you all a wonderful. Stick around, Daniel. We have a little briefing at the end. But that's it. Go ahead.
It is for the ancestors.
A wonderful, wonderful evening, everyone.
Ashe.
Namaste.